The Mercedes S-Class, it's always been the benchmark for luxury cars, and some recent updates aim to keep it ahead of the game, and that game includes the new Audi A8, which aims to beat the Mercedes both on technology and comfort. But we shouldn't forget about the BMW 7 Series, the limousine for people who like to drive themselves rather than be driven. So which of these three cars is best? I'm going to find out.
To help you decide, I'm going to compare how stylish they are.
Nothing says I've made a success out of my life more than one of these.
Test out their technology.
I'm not going to fault this though, the infotainment system. It's still the best in the business.
And see what they're like to drive.
What this car excels at though is comfort.
But first of all, let's look how much they cost.
The BMW 7 Series starts at £62,000, though that entry-level version has a 4-cylinder engine. The Audi A8 starts from £69,000 and you get a 6-cylinder engine and all-wheel drive. The Mercedes S-Class though, that starts from £73,000 and it does have a 6-cylinder engine as well, though not all-wheel drive. Now what really matters though is the price you pay at the dealer. So if you buy through carwow, you will save £17,500 on average on the Merc and the BMW, whereas you'll save £12,000 if you buy the A8 through carwow, which is still pretty good considering the car is brand new.
Now, even with those discounts, these are still very expensive cars. But which one looks $1 million?
If you want to turn up to an event in style, then you want to arrive in one of these, the Mercedes S-Class. I mean, nothing says I've made a success out of my life more than one of these. You know, it's just elegant, it's cool, and it just looks sophisticated. This car is pretty much everything that, unfortunately, I'm not. I'm more of a Mondeo.
And I don't have much in common with the BMW either.
There can be no doubt about it that the 7 Series looks the sportiest of the three cars, but also to me it looks the most like the car that's below it in the range as well. In this case, obviously, it's the 5 Series. I should point out that this particular car we've got here is the short wheelbase version, and the 7 Series does look good in that format. In the longer wheelbase version, it just kind of starts to look a bit ungainly, a bit like a barge.
And if you want to stand out from the crowd, the A8 also does a good job.
This Audi has a very distinctive face, mainly because it has what seems to be the largest grille in the automotive world. In fact, it's kind of like it's got a gaping mouth, like a basking shark. However, it does have some cool light graphics at the front and at the back. But down the sides, this car, it just looks like a big slab, especially in this long wheelbase version.
Overall though, these are all very impressive looking cars. But not everything is quite what it seems.
Mercedes has started this horrible trend in automotive design, and it's the fake exhaust. So it looks like an exhaust pipe, but as the carwow stick of truth will prove, it is fake. However, whatever Mercedes can do, Audi can do even worse. So I barely need the stick of truth for this one. So fake. BMW though, look, they're keeping things real. That is a proper exhaust pipe. The carwow stick of truth!
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is a perfect example of why you should never work with children or animals. Anyway, let me get quickly back to the cars. In particular, which has the most up-to-date technology and which has the classiest cabin?
The S-Class has a very stylish interior. It's all swoopy, it's very distinctive, it's flamboyant, maybe a bit too flamboyant with this kind of reddy browny trim contrasting with the cream. But in other colours, it looks great. However, what's not so good is that some of the parts don't feel quite as good as they look. For instance, right, this trim here, it feels a bit plasticky, and listen to this. Sounds a bit hollow, that does. Now, in terms of the infotainment system, you've got these two huge screens, one for the driver, then the main infotainment screen. I like the fact that they're quite high up, so you're not having to take your eyes off the road really to look at them. Now, you can operate this main screen using the swivel wheel controller, and I like the fact you've got that. It's not a touch screen because it's easier to use when you're driving along. The system itself isn't the most intuitive in the world, but you can still work your way around it. Now, if you want to, you can control it using the steering wheel. Buttons here, they're just touch sensitive and I can scroll through all the different menus. Then if I want to use the driving display, I use this side to scroll through the different menus, and it's all quite nice. Speaking of which, I love the steering wheel in this car. It looks elegant, just like the rest of the car.
There's a real sense of class and quality in the 7 Series too.
BMWs always feel solid and well built inside, and no more so than here at the top of the range in the 7 Series. The materials, they feel expensive. There's no flimsy bits of trim. The thing that lets it down though is the design. I mean, it's all right, it just doesn't feel all that special for such an expensive car. I'm not going to fault this though, the infotainment system. It's still the best in the business. So the one in the 7 Series, you can use it in the traditional swivel wheel way to easily scroll through menus, intuitive, dead easy to use. You can use your shortcut buttons, you can use your swiping, you can use a touchpad entry. But now with the 7 Series, you can also operate it as a touch screen if you like, and there's gesture control, so I can do things like increase the volume of the stereo by waving my finger around. Now the digital driver's display that you get on this car, it's okay, but it's just not a patch on those in the other two really. It's more simplistic, it's logical enough, but I don't like the fact that you have these plastic bits on it as well. I don't know why they've done that, it's just unnecessary.
If you really want to see how well things can be done, look at the A8.
When it comes to interiors, nobody does them better than Audi, and this A8 is the pinnacle of what they can do. It's an absolutely gorgeous cabin. You might think it's not quite as showy as the Mercedes or the BMW, but it's got that kind of minimalistic Bauhaus kind of Germanic geometric cool to it. I love it, and the material quality is second to none. So the wood that they use, it's lovely quality. The solid sounding doors when you tap them, it's all just top notch. And then there's features such as this. When I put the ignition on, the air vents open up and the vents rotate forward to lie flush with the rest of the trim. Then there's Audi's new infotainment screen. So I'm just going to turn it on. As you can see, it appears in the dash. When it's off, it's just all looks seamless, and it's fully touchscreen, and it's not operated with a swivel like before, which is a big mistake because touchscreens are just harder to operate while you're driving. To be fair, Audi has tried to make it a little bit easier because when you press one of the icons, it clicks and the screen vibrates. So you do know you're pressing it, but it's not as easy to use as just a simple button. You've also got this two-tiered screen system here. So you've got all your air conditioning functions down here and like your heated steering wheel and all that kind of stuff, whereas the main media is up here. Now, if I'm putting stuff into the navigation, I can actually use this big panel here to write in letters. N. Also, you get Audi's virtual cockpit here if you don't want to use that system, and that's the best one to use while you're driving. So you can scroll through all the different options. You can also use the Navi there. You can change the different views, and you've got Google Earth as well because obviously you're connected to the internet like you are in the other cars. It's all very simple, very nice and clear, and I think it's the best digital dial system you can get in any car at the moment. Of course, as with the other two cars, you've also got voice commands as well. If you don't want to use buttons or dials or anything, you can just say what you want the car to do within reason. But yeah, what an interior.
And thanks to that space-age cabin, the Audi has edged slightly ahead of its alternatives. But the fact is, if you're considering one of these cars, you may well be seeing its interior from the back seats. So, which is the best to be driven around in?
In standard form, the S-Class is very comfy in the back seats, but this long wheelbase version is particularly comfy because I've got the upgraded seat package. So it's £5,000, and what you get is this system, look. So for the person who sits behind the front passenger, you can extend the front passenger seat all the way forward. I can then recline to an angle of 37 degrees. I've got a rest for my calves, and there's another one for my feet, and I can just chill. It's absolutely lovely. There's also these extra pillows here which are really nice, comfy and cushioning. Other things that come in the package include, oh look, heating and cooling for your cup holders and these work tables. So they are a bit of origami to get them out, and then there you have it. That's it, that's the right way around. But they're not great for typing on because they vibrate, as you can see. Another thing that's not so good, I don't think, is this. Look, let me just put this away. Is the fact that these tablet screens, they're not touchscreen. You can only operate them by this. Now that's handy when you've got them extended all the way forward like that, but when they're in the normal position, it's just gonna be easier to use a touchscreen. Can't complain about this though. Look, I've got a handy place for my mobile phone, and if my phone did wireless charging, it would charge it for me. And if it was out of battery, look at this. I can use a temporary one, which is just connected via Bluetooth to my own phone. Perfect.
The 7 Series isn't far short of perfect either.
So this may be the short wheelbase version of the 7 Series, but as you can see, there's still loads of room here in the back. You only really need the long wheelbase cars if you're a chauffeur or you're a VIP who really wants to stretch out. And what I can do in the back of this car is still, look, I can recline the seats to get myself more comfortable, and it is very comfy. I love these seats actually, the contour effect on them, and they're supportive yet they're comfortable. Yeah, it's more than adequate. more than adequate.
And it's very much the same story in the A8.
The rear of this Audi is a really nice place to be. So the seats provide this great blend of comfort and support. The ComSat in here has the optional comfort pack, which includes some slightly upgraded seats. So I can recline them and slide them forward to get myself a little bit more comfortable. I can also, if I want to, move the front chair out of the way a little bit as well, to give myself a bit more room, as long as there's no one sitting there. This car also has the little tablet to control all the various systems. It's a £500 extra, and I can do things like operate the blinds with it. I can also control the seats and do the massage. I can control the lights, which includes the matrix lighting you get as part of the comfort pack. So up there's some little reading lights, and you can actually move them around like a little spotlight to decide where you want the light shining. It's really cool. Now you can go one further than this tablet if you want to and upgrade to the full rear entertainment package. Then you can do things such as operate the navigation, scroll through the radio, put the telly on. But the interesting thing about these is they're actually removable Android tablets, so you can actually just use them in your lap or take them with you. Though that does have a downside, and that's the fact that if you're going to park this car up, you are actually going to have to take these with you, otherwise someone will probably break a window and take them for themselves. Last thing to point out on the A8 is that you don't actually have to tug at the handle to open the door. It's basically a switch, look. So you've got soft opening as well as, look at this, soft closing if you want it.
Overall, there's not much to choose between these three cars from the back seat. They all have more than enough room to take two passengers in absolute luxury. That space also means that it's easy to get a child seat into any one of these cars, in case you're interested, but it's a little harder to fit in the Audi as the Isofix mounts are hidden away under the seat cushion. The boot space is pretty much identical on all three cars too, so you'll have no problem fitting in a set of golf clubs or a couple of big suitcases. The BMW's boot has a slightly wider opening, which makes it a little easier to load, but there's not much between them in everyday use. However, how will the cars compare when it comes to driving them?
For me, the Mercedes S-Class has always set the standard for how a luxury car should drive. The suspension just glides you up the road, super comfortable. Occasionally it gets caught out by sharp bumps, and it can fidget over really rough surfaces, but most of the time it's impeccable. Then there's the quietness. It's a relaxing car, not too much noise entering from the outside. It just isolates you from the world, makes you forget about all your cares and worries. It's a lovely thing, but then if I put into dynamic, also known as sporty mode, it sharpens everything up. For a big car, it handles very well. I particularly like the steering. It feels connected to the road. You can actually have some fun in this big old barge. It's very surprising. I've also got to praise this car's new straight 6 3-litre diesel engine. It's almost as smooth as a petrol engine. It pulls really hard and it gives decent economy, so I'm averaging 31 miles per gallon. It's alright. It's a very nice engine. It works well with this smooth, responsive gearbox as well. Tell you what, when it comes to driving, this car sets the bar really, really high. It's like up there. Actually, it's probably up there, really. It's that good. Also, there's just something about driving along and seeing that Mercedes star on the bonnet. Makes you feel special. So jumping into the 7 Series after the S-Class, the differences are very, very subtle, but they are there. For instance, the suspension in this doesn't seem to float over bumps in the same way that it does in the Mercedes. Noise levels, yeah, it's quiet, this car. Perhaps the Mercedes is a bit quieter, but not by that much of a margin for it to make any kind of difference. One thing that I have noticed though is the steering. In this car, bizarrely for a BMW, it just doesn't feel connected to the front wheels. Now I can put the car into sport mode to stiffen up the suspension and add weight to the steering to make it feel more sporty, but then the ride is way too firm and actually doesn't seem to drive quite as well as the Mercedes in the sporty mode either. The Mercedes is more fun. What's BMW doing? I'll tell you what it's doing. It's doing good engines, because this 3-litre diesel 40D is very, very quick. I mean, it flies. And yet it's still doing pretty much 34 miles per gallon. Also the gearbox, it's smooth, it's slick, it's responsive. However, overall to drive, it's not quite as good as the Mercedes. Finally, we come to the Audi. Now I want to start with what's not quite so good about it. I think that's the engine. The one in the Mercedes is definitely quieter and smoother. I can't fault the engine for its performance though, because it is strong. The gearbox is good too, though not quite as good as those in the other two cars. As for the economy, well, it's doing 34 miles per gallon. It's pretty good. Then there's the handling. Yeah, the steering's not quite as sharp as it is in the Mercedes, but the car goes exactly where you point it, and because of that Quattro all-wheel drive, there's lots of reassuring grip. What this car excels at, though, is comfort. It's just so unbelievably relaxing to travel in. The air suspension is even better than that in the Mercedes. There's no fidgeting over rough surfaces, nor jolts when you go over potholes. And it's so quiet in here, the sound insulation's second to none. This is just a really lovely car to drive or be driven in. You know, I said the Mercedes set the bar up there for driving? Well, this Audi now moves it to like completely out of shot. So then, what's my final verdict? Well, the BMW 7 Series, it's a lovely car. It's just not as lovely a luxury car as the Mercedes S-Class. Like I said at the beginning, it's the benchmark. Don't. It's actually not the benchmark anymore. That is the Audi A8. When it comes to comfort, luxury and technology, it now leads the field, and that's why it wins this test.
If you enjoyed this video, please like it, comment on it and share it. Also click on our logo to subscribe to this channel, and if you click on the bottom right hand corner you can actually watch more of our content. Meanwhile, click over to the right to go to our deals page to see how much money you can save on a new car at CarWow.